Hello everyone, it's nice to be back with you again. When we left Sign of the Beaver last, we had finished chapter 10. And remember, Matt and Etienne had gone fishing together. And Matt felt like Etienne was making fun of him, like telling him to spear the fish. And Matt was very self-conscious about having to do all this in front of Etienne because Etienne just did it with ease. He had no trouble. And so Matt was a little bit, he felt very uncomfortable actually doing this in front of Etienne because he just didn't feel like he was very good at it. It was his first time. Remember, we've talked about that. When it's your first time doing something, you're just not going to be great at it. That's it. Everything takes practice. So he ended up getting his fishing pole and caught a fish that way, and that worked out well. The boys ate the fish together. Matt said, gosh, that was the best fish he'd ever had. And towards the end of chapter 10, Matt and Etienne had actually kind of been talking with each other almost as if they were friends. So they're starting to get over that hurdle of not really caring for one another, but acting like friends towards one another. And the one thing I thought was funny, remember when Etienne had speared the fish, the small one, and he whispered something to the fish, he told the fish something, and Matt said, what was it you said to that fish? And Etienne said, I told him not to tell the other fish that we were there trying to catch fish. He said to keep it a secret, not to tell them, not to scare away the other fish. And Matt was like, you think he really was going to do that? And Etienne said, probably. The Native Americans are just very in tune with nature. They just, it's almost like another language to them, talking to animals, things in nature. It's interesting. All right, so chapter 11. I forgot to take my allergy medicine today, and my eyes are watering. How about you guys? Have you had watery eyes? Whoosh. So chapter 11, we're going to find out where they are. Yeah, okay. Are you all doing okay? Are you enjoying the book? Kind of reading along with it? You're reading with me every day, following your words, okay? Have you brushed your teeth this morning? Have you gotten yourself pulled together? You're awake, splashed some water on your face, ate a little breakfast, brushed your teeth. Nobody wants to smell that stinky breath. If you haven't, just pause this video for a minute and hightail it into the bathroom and get them brushed. Get yourself ready for the day. This is school. All right, here we go. Chapter 11, page 51. One morning, Matt laid his sticks in a row, 7 sticks, each with 7 notches. Now, what did his pa say when he left? He said, have a stick for each week. There's 7 days in a week. He said, I should be back with your ma and little sister and the new baby in 6 or 7 weeks. So 6 or 7 sticks. Well, he's at the end of the 7th stick, so what's that mean? Pa and ma and his little sister and the new baby, they should be coming soon. And here, that tells us that right now. That meant that it was well into August. The silk tassels were glistening on the corn stalks. The hard green pumpkins nestling underneath the stalks were rounding out and taking on a coating of orange. It was time for his father to be coming. At any moment, he might look out and see him walking into the clearing, bringing his mother and Sarah and the new baby. It was strange to think there was a member of the family he had never seen. Was it a boy or a girl? It would be a fine thing to have them sitting around the table again. He hoped his mother would take over the reading lessons, which were going badly. Etienne still came almost every day, though there was no longer any need for him to bring meat or fish. Matt couldn't make out why the Indian kept coming, since he made it so plain he disliked the lessons. So often Etienne made him feel uncomfortable and ridiculous. But he had to admit that on the days when Etienne did not come, the hours went by slowly. So even though he wasn't crazy about Etienne coming for the lessons, at least it made the day go a little bit faster. So on the days when Etienne didn't come, they just kind of dragged on. Often Etienne seemed in no hurry to leave when the morning's lessons was over. Look, see if catch rabbit, he might suggest, and together they would go out to check the snares, or they would go tramp along the creek to a good spot for fishing. Etienne seemed to have plenty of time on his hands. Sometimes he would just hang around and watch Matt do the chores. He would stand at the edge of the corn patch and look on while Matt pulled up weeds. "Squaw work," he commented once. Matt flushed. "Well, we think it's a man's work," he retorted. Etienne said nothing. He did not offer to help. So Etienne's saying that's a work that a woman should be doing, not a man or a boy. Etienne said nothing. He did not offer to help. After a time, he just wandered off without saying goodbye. So Etienne would just kind of come and go as he pleased. He'd sometimes say hey, sometimes say goodbye, but pretty much he just wandered in and out as he wanted to. It must be mighty pleasant, Matt thought to himself, to just hunt and fish all day long and not have any other work to do. That wasn't his father's way, and it wouldn't ever be his. The work was always waiting to be done. But if he got the corn patch cleared and the wood chopped today, he could go fishing with Etienne tomorrow, if Etienne invited him. Sometimes Etienne brought an old dog with him. It was about the sorriest looking hound Matt had ever seen, with a coat of coarse brown hair, a mangy tail, look at that word, mangy is how you say that, and whitish patches on its face that gave it a clownish look. So he thinks the dog kind of looks like a clown. Its long pointed nose was misshapen with bumps and bristles. Are you making those pictures in your mind? That's not a very pretty little dog, is it? Kind of unattractive looking. By the look of its ears, it had survived many battles. The instant it spied Matt, a ridge of hair went straight up on its back and it let out a mean growl. Etienne cuffed it sharply, and after that it was quiet. But it watched the white stranger with wary eyes and kept its distance. Matt tried not to show his own distrust. "What's his name?" he asked politely. Etienne shrugged. "No name, Aramis, dog." "Well, if he doesn't have a name, how can he come when you call?" "Him my dog, him come." As though he knew what Etienne had said, the scruffy tail began to weave back and forth. "Biz what?" Etienne said. "Good for nothing, no good for hunt, no sense, him fight anything, bear, moose." There was no mistaking the pride in Etienne's voice. So he's saying, he's calling the dog good for nothing. He said he's not good to take hunting, that he would fight anything, so that the dog doesn't have much sense. "What's wrong with his nose?" Etienne grinned. "Him fight anything. Chase cog. What white man call needles all over." "Oh, a porcupine? Golly, that must have hurt." "Pull out many needle, some very deep, not come out. Dog not feel them now." So that's one of the reasons he looks a little bit weird. He's got like needles from a porcupine that have stuck in his body. Maybe not, Matt thought, but he doubted those quills had improved the dog's disposition. He didn't fancy this dog of Etienne's, meaning he didn't really care for that dog. During the lessons, the dog prowled about inside the cabin and finally thumped down on the path to bite and scratch at fleas. When Etienne came out, the dog leaped up, prancing and yapping as though Etienne had been gone for days. Matt thought a little better of him for that. It minded him how his father's dog had made a fuss every time his father came home. That old hound must have just about wagged its tail off when his father came back from Maine. The fact was, Matt was a little jealous of Etienne. A dog would be mighty fine company here in the woods, no matter how scrawny it looked. But not this one. No matter how often the dog came, with Etienne, he never let Matt touch him, nor did Matt like him any better. He was certainly no good at hunting. When the two boys walked through the woods, the dog zigzagged ahead, sending squirrels racing up trees and jays chattering and ruining any chance of a catch. Matt wondered why Etienne wanted him along. Etienne didn't pay him any mind except to shout at him and cuff him when he was too noisy. But for all his show of indifference, it was plain to Matt that Etienne thought a sight of that dog. So even though the dog is not good for hunting, he's not even cute, Etienne still seems to love the dog. Etienne had not brought the dog with him the day that he led Matt a long distance into a part of the forest that Matt had never seen. Following after him, Matt began to feel uneasy. Now, if Etienne should take himself off suddenly, as he had a way of doing, Matt was not sure he could find his way back to the cabin. It occurred to him that Etienne knew this, that perhaps Etienne brought him so far just to show him how helpless he really was, how all the words in a white man's book were of no use to him in the woods. So Etienne is taking him deep into the woods. And Matt is starting to feel very uneasy, thinking, yikes, Etienne just takes off when he wants to. What if he brings me out into this deep, deep woods and then just takes off? I don't know how to get back to my cabin. And he's thinking to himself, did Etienne do this just to show him how smart Native Americans are, and that maybe the white man's words don't mean a doggone thing when you've got life skills to know, like, how to get your way out of the forest? Yet he did not think this would happen. For some reason he could not explain to himself, he trusted Etienne. He didn't really like him. When the Indian got that disdainful look in his eyes, Matt hated him. But somehow, as they had sat side by side, day after day, doing the lessons that neither of them wanted to do, something had changed. Perhaps it had been Robinson Crusoe, or the tramping through the woods together. They didn't like each other, but they were no longer enemies. When they came upon a row of short tree stumps, birch and aspen cut off close to the ground, Matt's heart gave a leap. Were there settlers nearby, or Indians? There was no proper clearing. Then he noticed that whoever had cut the trees had left jagged points on each one. That's weird. No axe could cut a tree in that way. He could see marks where the trees had been dragged along the ground. In a few steps, the boys came out on the bank of an unfamiliar creek. There, Matt saw what had happened to those trees. They had been piled in a mound right over the water. What are you thinking? From one bank to the other. Water trickled through them in tiny cascades. Cascades is one of our, sorry, I forgot about these. Cascades is kind of like a little waterfall. Disposition is how somebody's outlook is. Like if you have a sunny disposition, you're happy and you're always looking at the positive side of things. If you have kind of a negative disposition, you're always kind of grumpy and bleh. Behind the piled up branches, a small pond stretched smooth and still. It's a beaver dam, he exclaimed. The first one I've ever seen. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a beaver dam. They are amazing. It amazes me that a beaver can build something like that. I was trying to pull one up on here, but it's just kind of hard to see the way I'm showing you this and reading you the book. But with Mom and Dad's permission, if you get the chance, Google a beaver dam just to see what that looks like. Be sure you ask for Mom and Dad's permission, though. Okay, we don't want to go anywhere that we don't need to be going. But just check it out because they really are truly amazing. Quabit, said Etienne, have red tail. Their beaver wigwam. Remember a wigwam, or not remember, but a wigwam is a place to live. So that's where the beavers live. He pointed to a heap of branches at one side, some of them new with green leaves still clinging. Matt stepped closer to look. Instantly, there was the crack of a rifle. A ring of water rippled the surface of the pond. Near its edge, a black head appeared for just a flash and vanished again in a splutter of bubbles. Etienne laughed at the way Matt had started. Beaver make big noise with tail, he explained. I thought someone had shot a gun, Matt said. I wish I had my rifle now. Now, you know, like when you're in the swimming pool and you have a pool noodle, and you smack it down on the water and it makes that really loud sound, almost like the shot of a gun. That's what a beaver's tail does. It makes that sound. It smacks down because they have a flat tail, smacks down on the water, and it sounds like a gunshot. So enough to startle anyone for sure. Etienne scowled. Not shoot, he warned. Not white man, not Indian. Young beaver not ready. So Etienne's saying, we wouldn't shoot a young beaver. Come on, man. He pointed to a tree nearby. Sign of beaver, he said, belong to family. Now, sign of the beaver. He's getting ready to tell us what that means. Carved, we're on page 56, okay, this is explaining the sign of the beaver. Carved on the bark, Matt could make out the crude figure of an animal that could, with some imagination, be a beaver. Sign show Beaver House belonged to people of Beaver, Etienne explained. By and by, when young beaver all grown, people of Beaver hunt here. No one hunt but people of Beaver. You mean just from that mark on the tree another hunter would not shoot here? That our way, Etienne said gravely. All Indian understand. So he's saying on the tree, the different tribes have marked their area where they're allowed to hunt. So on this tree is the sign of the beaver, and that's Etienne's tribe. That means his tribe can hunt there. Now he would right now because the beavers are young, but when it's time, that's only for the Beaver tribe. If you're from another tribe, it's just an understanding. You don't hunt there, okay? The Native Americans, the Indians, have that agreement that they just understand that and they follow it. Would a white man understand, Matt wondered. He thought of Ben with his stolen rifle. It wasn't likely Ben would respect an Indian sign, but he must remember to warn his father, because he's saying, you know, what if his father, Matt's father, had come and wanted to go hunting? He wouldn't even think anything about looking for signs on the trees to know whether or not he could hunt in a place. When it seemed the beaver did not intend to show itself again, the two boys climbed back up the bank. At the row of stumps, Etienne halted and signaled for Matt to go ahead. Show way to cabin, he ordered. All Matt's suspicions came rushing back. Did Etienne intend to sneak off behind his back and leave him to find his own way home? Is this some kind of a trick? He demanded hotly. Etienne looked stern. Not trick, he said. Matt need learn. So Etienne's not being mean. He's just saying, this is the kind of stuff you need to learn, Matt. That he's not trying to tease him or make fun of him. He's truly trying to help him. If Matt had gone off in the forest, he would need to be able to find his way back. So Etienne is trying to teach him that. To Matt's relief, he took the lead again. After a short distance, he stopped at a point to a broken stick leaning in the direction of the creek. Now just picture that. It's just a broken stick, okay? A little farther on, there was a small stone set against a larger one. I wouldn't think anything about that. Not far away, a tuft of dried grass dangled from a branch of a small tree. Indian, make sign, Etienne said. Always make sign to tell way. Matt must same. Not get lost in forest. So, I don't know if you're familiar with the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel, but how they dropped the breadcrumbs through the forest so that they would remember their way back out. It's kind of the same idea. He says you make little marks so that when you have to come back out, you look for those marks. Oh, okay, there's that broken branch, and there's that little stone in front of the larger stone. So you make little marks just so you can remember your way back. Now, Matt remembered how Etienne had paused every so often, sometimes to break off a branch that hung in their path, once to nudge aside a stone with the toe of his moccasin. He had done those things so quickly that Matt had paid no mind. He saw now that Etienne had carefully been leaving markers. Of course, he exclaimed, but my father always made blazes on the trees with his knife. Etienne nodded. That white man's way. Indian maybe not want to show where he go, not want hunters to find Beaver House. So these were secret signs, like I said, things you wouldn't even think about. Nothing anyone following them would notice. It would take sharp eyes to find them, even if you knew where they were, or knew they were there. Matt do same, Etienne repeated. Always make sign to show way back. Matt was ashamed of his suspicions. Etienne had only meant to help him. If only he didn't have to be so superior about it. Meaning he thinks Matt feels kind of arrogant. Matt thinks that Etienne feels kind of arrogant about what he knows, but truly, Etienne is just trying to help Matt out. He plodded along behind Etienne, trying to spot the signs before Etienne could point them out. All at once, as a thought struck him, he almost laughed out loud. He remembered Robinson Crusoe and his man Friday. He and Etienne had sure enough turned that story right round about. Wherever they went a few steps from the cabin, whenever they went a few steps from the cabin, it was the brown savage who strode ahead, leading the way, knowing just what to do and doing it quickly and skillfully. And Matt, a puny sort of Robinson Crusoe, tagged along behind, grateful for the smallest sign that he could do anything right. It wasn't that he wanted to be a master, and the idea of Etienne's being anyone's slave was not to be thought of. He just wished he could make Etienne think a little better of him. He wanted Etienne to look at him without that gleam of amusement in his eyes. He wished that it were possible for him to win Etienne's respect. So that's what all he wants. He wants Etienne to respect him for what he knows. Now, he feels like everything he does is just stupid to Etienne. And he wants Etienne to think, okay, maybe this kid knows a thing or two. As though Etienne sensed that Matt was disgruntled, he stopped, whipped out his knife, and neatly sliced off 2 shining globs of dried sap from a nearby spruce. He grinned and held out one of them like a peace offering. "Chaw," he ordered. He popped the other piece into his mouth and began to chew with evident pleasure. Gingerly, Matt copied him. The glob fell into pieces between his teeth, filling his mouth with a bitter juice. What do you think that is? Huh? He wanted to spit it out in disgust, but Etienne was plainly enjoying the stuff, so he stubbornly forced his jaws to keep moving. In a moment, the bits came together in a rubbery gum, and the first bitterness gave way to a fresh, piney taste. To his surprise, it was very good. The 2 boys tramped on, chewing companionably. Once more, Matt acknowledged to himself Etienne had taught him another secret of the forest. So that was the first chewing gum that they ever had, was the sap from a tree. So, Matt kind of sums it up there, that Etienne had shown him another trick to the forest. He has learned so much. Think of all the things he has learned from Etienne. I bet you can make quite a list in your head of the different things, and we'll be talking about those again when we summarize. But in this chapter, so he taught Etienne going deep into the forest, and then showed him that cool beaver dam, which if you get the chance, with Mom and Dad's permission, try to look that up. Also, I like a moccasin, picture of a moccasin. You might want to look up in case you're not sure what one of those looks like. But Etienne has taught him so many things, and we're going to keep going. Wondering though, it's time for the family to be coming back. Remember he had the 7 sticks, 7 notches in each stick. So it's been how many days? Remember what we said? 7 times 7 is 49. 49 days. And Pa said that he reckoned he'd be back about then. But remember, he has no way to communicate with Matt. He can't give him a call or anything and say, hey man, we're on our way, or we ran into a little trouble, we're going to be delayed. He can't do any of that. So Matt just has to sit hoping that they'll be there soon. All right? All right, when we come back together again, we'll be reading chapter 12. As always, you want to do a chapter summary. I stopped making the sheets. I figure you kind of know what to do now on your sheets. Now, some of you have turned them in already, which is absolutely fine. Some of you, I had said you could wait until the end of the book, and that's fine too. Whatever you find easiest. But keep them, okay? Don't get rid of them. Because when we finish this book, I don't know whether we're going to be able to come back together before the end of the school year or not, but we're going to be doing some activities where you will need, those summaries will be really helpful to you for some of the things that we're going to do, okay? So hang on to them, get a little folder, keep them in your folder. Some of you have done a fabulous job. Your pictures look good, your sentences are great. Others of you, I feel like, are kind of not putting your best effort in. If you could just give it a little more effort, I'd love it. Picture me looking over your shoulder. And what would I say? I want it neat. I want it organized. I want it eye-appealing. Okay? So like I said, it does not have to hang in the Speed Art Museum, but I want it to look good. Okay? All right, so next time it'll be chapter 12. I'll see you guys. Be awesome. Bye.